Habitat Highway: Planning a Future for Pollinators in Massachusetts. Part 1. What is a pollinator? Pollination is an important part of plant reproduction for many flowering plants on our planet. It occurs when pollen from one plant is transferred to another, fertilizing the plant and making it possible for the plant to reproduce. Pollination can occur through a number of ways, but most flowering plants are pollinated by wildlife. In fact, more than 80% of flowering plants on Earth rely on these important wildlife pollinators for reproduction. As pollinators move from flower to flower in search of nectar, they transmit pollen. If a pollinator visits two different flowers of the same species, they can help fertilize the plant. Fertilized plants will disperse seeds, leading to more flowers and more pollinators for the next season. Here in Massachusetts, insects are the most common pollinators for our many flowering plant species. Most of these insect pollinators prefer to live in open meadow habitat, where they have a constant supply of wildflowers throughout the spring, summer, and fall. Meadows also provide shelter from predators and plenty of space below ground for nesting. We have hundreds of species of insect pollinators in Massachusetts, including bees, wasps, butterflies, flies, beetles, and moths. These wild pollinators are vital for fertilizing agricultural crops, such as cranberries and blueberries, as well as helping to maintain our state's vast diversity of flowering plants. Part 2. Pollinators in Crisis. Insect pollinators are essential, yet they have experienced serious population declines in the U.S. in recent decades. There are many reasons for this decline, including the spread of new diseases and increased pesticide use. At the same time, pollinator habitat has become increasingly rare nationwide. In Massachusetts, this has been a particularly important problem. Massachusetts is the third most densely populated state in the U.S., and development has been on the rise in recent decades. Since 1971, more than 325,000 acres of land area in Massachusetts has been developed. A lot of this developed land used to be farmland, pasture, or open meadows, land that is typically cheaper and less restricted for developers than forested land. It also happens to be just the kind of habitat that pollinators need to survive. If we zoom in on a small section of land along Interstate 495, just outside Middleborough, Massachusetts, we can see how, in just a 30-year period, land use has changed significantly. In this map, we have potential pollinator habitat, like old fields, pastures, or meadows, developed land, forests, wetlands, or other green space, water, and major highways. Since 1971, this area has become increasingly developed, and much of this development is encroaching onto former pollinator habitat. This is a trend that can be seen across Massachusetts, and it's bad news for pollinators. Clearly, we need to come up with a solution, and fast. Part 3. Highway habitat. Restoring habitat for pollinators in Massachusetts has proven difficult in the past. Cutting down forest or limiting development tend to be unpopular and expensive options. So where else can we look? Well, other states in the U.S. have been carving out habitat in a somewhat unusual place: highway roadsides. Roadsides are the grassy areas directly adjacent to the road. They are typically managed by local or state departments of transportation, DOT, and mowed frequently to maintain driver visibility and road safety. The roadsides adjacent to the highway are mowed up to 4 times a year. This mowing routine can be incredibly expensive. In 2017, the state DOT spent more than $5.4 million on maintaining highway roadsides through mowing and/or spraying pesticides. Mowing equipment and fuel costs add additional expenses each year. Converting mowed roadsides to meadow can create miles of habitat for pollinators while also cutting costs for transportation departments in the long run. Roadside meadows need to be mowed only once a year or every other year to keep out any woody vegetation from growing in. This can drastically cut mowing costs for the state. Meadow roadsides can be planned in a way that maintains driver safety and visibility by planting short plants near signs and at sharp bends in the road. States like Texas, Iowa, and West Virginia have all implemented safe and cost-effective roadside restoration projects. So why hasn't Massachusetts hopped on board? Well, a few concerns must be addressed before our state can embark on such a large-scale project. Thankfully, we can look to the success of these other states' projects for guidance. Part 4. Seeds of Success. The most successful projects in other states required lots and lots of careful planning beforehand. They also had to address 3 core issues: workforce, seed source, and funding. Projects like this one require a lot of work, both on the ground and in the planning process. DOT managers are skilled at planning mowing regimens, but may be less comfortable planning for a restoration project. In order for a project to be successful, it is important that managers are familiar with wildflower identification and landscape design techniques. In Iowa, the DOT has established an advisory committee of biologists, conservationists, landscape planners, and other interested parties that provide expert advice to roadside managers on a regular basis. They also secure much-needed funding for future research projects to monitor the roadside meadow. It is also important to establish a reliable source of native seeds. Texas has one of the oldest and most expansive wildflower roadside programs in the country. The state DOT seeds over 800,000 acres of roadside with native plant species. In order to cover this much area, the DOT collaborated with state universities and conservation organizations to create a seed bank program capable of producing seed on a commercial scale. By sharing labor costs with other organizations, the Texas DOT saves money, while also involving experts that can help make decisions about what plants to include in seed mixes. Lastly, a project of this scale, though cost-effective in the long run, requires significant upfront expenses. New seeding equipment, native seed mixes, employee training, and labor costs can add up to a large project budget. In West Virginia, DOT managers raised funds for the restoration project by expanding the existing Adopt a Highway program. With the expanded program, local businesses, garden clubs, and individual donors can sponsor a section of highway to be planted with wildflowers. In addition, the program recruits volunteers from the community to help with the labor involved in planting wildflowers. This program helps pay for the seed mixes and equipment needed to maintain the roadside as pollinator meadow, while also engaging local community members in the project. Each state DOT approached these issues in different ways, but all states' projects were a collaborative effort involving multiple interested groups working together. Part 5. Pollinate Massachusetts. Pollinators in Massachusetts need a solution to habitat loss, and soon. Highway roadsides in Massachusetts offer up a clear solution to this problem, with acres of potential habitat ready and waiting for conversion. A carefully planned roadside restoration project has the potential to help restore vital populations of native pollinators, while also cutting costs for the state DOT in the long run. Established roadside meadows are also attractive, highlighting the natural beauty of Massachusetts to visitors driving in from afar. In order to ensure that our insect pollinators continue to thrive for future generations to come, we need to act now.